Ukraine demolishes a big modern Russian ammunition depot. They very likely destroyed thousands, probably tens of thousands of tons of weaponry. This is obviously the biggest news because it will have an effect on the front line very, very soon. But we'll also talk about what is actually happening along the front line, because while we have some small Ukrainian successes, it's mostly the Russians that are advancing. But as said, we'll talk about this and everything else that has happened in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. We'll start off with a gruesome war crime. There is a picture being circled around of the Russians having killed a Ukrainian prisoner of war once again. This time, though, they stabbed him with a sword, and they published a picture of the corpse lying on the ground with the sword sticking out of his chest, and on the blade was written "For Kursk." So, the event was geolocated in Novorodivka, so here in the Donetsk area, and there the Russians apparently killed a Ukrainian prisoner of war for the fact that to avenge that the Ukrainians dared to enter into Russia. The Russians are using in air warfare, they are also using 4,000 gliding bombs a month right now just in eastern Ukraine. That's what the Ukrainian President Zelensky said. And they continue their airstrikes with cruise missiles, ballistic missiles and Shahid. There have been again several big attacks with Shahid, with over 50 of them over the last few days. But the Ukrainians strike back and they hit one of the biggest Russian ammunition depots in Tver at 600 kilometers in distance from the front line. We have it here just in the overview where it was. The Ukrainians, the depot itself, according to reports, it is unclear how full it was, but the reports are between 30,000 and 19,000 tons of weaponries. Even if we take the smallest amount, that is a significant amount of weaponry. The Ukrainians are saying that the Russians were storing ammunition for 122mm Grad rockets. The rocket MLRS system, they were storing 82mm mortar rounds. They were storing ammunition for the S-300 and S-400 air defense systems, but as well as Iskander and KN-23 ballistic missiles. They were destroyed in this event. This was one of the most modern installations of the Russian Federation. They had just inaugurated it a couple of years ago, claiming that it's even safe against nuclear strikes in the event. The overall area has a size of more than 5 square kilometers. That's more than 2 square miles. But the detonations that have happened were so massive that they were recognized as seismic events, like small earthquakes in the surrounding areas. The ammunition apparently was just lying around. That here we have films also showing us the event, that what has happened here. It's completely lit up, as you can see, fire all over the area here. And according to the pictures, the ammunition was just lying around next to the buildings over the, even in May this year, they were still lying around. Obviously, even if you build heavy bunkers that are supposed to be far enough away from each other so only one can be destroyed at a time, then maybe you shouldn't spread around explosives all around them, and to thus allow the reaction to continue, as it clearly has when we look at films. There are also reports that civilian areas have burned down. It's expected that civilian casualties have happened. This, for instance, is a town directly adjacent to it, but as you can see, it's surrounded with civilian settlements. The whole area here, the Russians have built a massive ammo depot right in between their own population. The smoke plume from it can actually already be seen from space. This is pictures from the development where you can see the smoke rising up. The explosions were massive, and the local governor was saying everything is getting under control, while in the background you were still permanently hearing explosions from this event. Ukrainian hackers couldn't resist to turn it even worse. They hacked the local location, the website of the local municipality, and added Budanov's picture on the front page. At least that's what's being spread around. I wasn't able to check it myself, so it might be a hoax, but it's being spread around that Budanov was put on the website there as well. The destruction should be clearly have an effect in the north of the front line fairly soon. It's directly connected to the railroad line, and it is surely used to supply the Russians in the whole northern area here. And this will be felt that 19,000, maybe more tons of explosives, 19,000 tons of ammunition is missing, at least in the short term. It will have a direct effect on the front line here. But let's go to the front line actually, and from the Glushkovo area, from the Kursk area, I have two changes. First, we have the Ukrainians having slightly advanced here in the south of Glushkovo. You see Glushkovo is here in the west, and so far they have operated in this area. Now they were somewhat to the west, so we have a fresh change here, but we also have the Russians having advanced in the east of that. They are now at this point, those were the towns where they were recently seen. This is Nagost, just for your orientation. So we are talking about the Russians roughly reaching this point here. They have gained significantly more ground. They have pushed significantly further than the Ukrainians have on their side. As of now, I cannot confirm that this is under their control, but the gray zone definitely should be extended on the map here. We switch over to the other parts of the front line because that's all that I have from Kursk as of now. We switch over to the other parts of the front line here at Kharkiv. Just fighting is being reported. Supposedly the Ukrainians might have advanced somewhat in the factory here, but I was not able to confirm it. So as of now, the front line seems to not have moved in any significant way. On the eastern front, the Russians were able to consolidate some positions here to the southeast of Pishchane, probably due to Ukrainian withdrawals, but overall just a minor tactical success, nothing bigger that can be reported from this area. We go down south of the Seversky Donetsk, and here I have nothing directly from the Chasiv Yar area, but the Russians have now reached the town of Andrivka itself. We have a geolocation of this here as well, and there we see them right at the outskirts of the town itself. As I said in the past, I think the deep state map is vastly inaccurate when it comes to the area here, as recently we even had a geolocation over on the other side of the canal here. Where the actual front line right now is, I cannot say though, as even Petrenko, who is fairly reliable, is still not updating it massively to the further here, but we have geolocations. So at least in the interim, the Russians are operating far outside the area that is indicated here on the map. The Russians also managed a small advance in Toretsk. This is geolocated again. We have it here. They have advanced somewhat to the south of the bigger areas here. This should be in this area here. And they recently pushed further to the west, even though I think they were defeated at this point. So as of now, I cannot confirm any significant change towards the center of Toretsk itself. We switch over to the Pokrovsk area, and here we have the Russians first advancing north of Ocheretine. Here at Arkhangelsk, they have advanced a little to the north. We have a geolocation of this as well, and there we have the Russians, right? You see the body of water here. They are roughly at this point they have advanced at to this point. West of it, they have taken most of Rodivka. We are probably at a point now where we have to say that Rodivka has likely fallen completely into Russian hands, because we have them in the north, and there was also a geolocation from the south. So while it's still a possibility that some areas, as you can see here in the west of the town, might still be contested, that there might still be some Ukrainian presence in the western part, Rodivka has probably fallen as of now, and that's definitely a painful setback for the Ukrainians, as it was one of the bigger settlements in the way to Pokrovsk after the Ukrainian loss of Novorodivka. Further south, we have the Ukrainians advancing at Mikhailivka. There we have a geolocation of the Ukrainians having advanced into, well, let me see, here this is the railroad line we talked about in the past. The Ukrainians had crossed it over here. So in this area, we recently had the Russians in this area here roughly, and somewhere to the north. Now we see the Ukrainians back on the other side of the railroad. I guess the current painting of the map as gray zone, basically as contested, is fairly accurate. And we also have a further geolocation to the south here, directly to it, and this here is Russian presence. This is the Russians being in this area here as well. Again, I cannot confirm that they have consolidated their control, but this is the first visual observation of me of the Russians in that area, which shows us that they keep advancing in this overall situation. The Russians have also raised their flag in the mine of Ukrainsk. This is geolocated as well. We have here, you see the video that they raised the red flag at this point at the mine. Now, as of now, I cannot confirm that it's actually confirmed 100% in Russian hands. There is a flag rising of the Russians at that point as well, which would indicate that they had pushed the Ukrainians quite a while away. I would guess that Ukrainsk has fallen. I cannot 100% confirm it. I'm 90% sure though at this point. And as we said in the past, this was to be expected with the Russians having flanked it in the west and were pushing in the south as well. The Ukrainians didn't have a chance to withdraw from that area. When I look at the overall situation right now, this was the last change on territory that we have along the front line here. I have nothing to say, no changes along the southern front, nothing along the Dnipro, nothing has changed here in the overall situation. The front line so far has been stable. If we go to the overall situation, we see that along the northern front in Kursk, both sides are still advancing. The Russians have the upper hand, at least in the areas where the airborne troops, the VDV, is operating. Ukrainians have tried to push from the south in the Glushkovo region. So far, they have had some successes, but no bigger successes in the overall area. Kharkiv is stable now for both sides. This is a rear area. This is a secondary front. No side wants to invest serious power at this point. The main focus of the Russian is still at Pokrovsk, mostly towards the south, where they still keep advancing, where they secure their flanks towards the main thrust in the direction of Pokrovsk, but there the Ukrainians have managed to slow them down over the past couple of weeks after the redeployment of 2 additional brigades. In the south, nothing much has changed. I've seen one geolocation close to Orikhiv, but this is in the gray zone, so I cannot confirm any change in territory here. I cannot confirm that anything has changed in the territorial control on the ground. And this was it with the overall situation. We have some news about troop generation there. Azerbaijan has now complained that several of its citizens have been recruited against their will into the Russian service. According to the reports, the Azerbaijanis were picked up as illegal migrants and then have been forced into military service. So we'll have to see how much the Azerbaijani government will put pressure towards Putin in this regard as well. In troop generation from Ukraine, we have some news. Zelensky said that Ukraine now has issues to even set up only 4 brigades. As of now, they are needing 14 though. The manpower is not an issue after the implementation of the new mobilization law. The manpower issue is at least theoretically more or less solved, but he's saying that we can't even equip fully 4 brigades because of the lack of Western deliveries. Ukraine tries to compensate for this by redeploying material, so that they are taking from reserve units, they are taking material and giving it to frontline units. But while this might help for the moment, it obviously is not a long-term solution, as the reserve brigades will lose in combat ability, in combat capability and in effectiveness, and they are there to be used in case of need. And if that need comes, they will not be able to fight to the effectiveness that they are meant to be. Generally, though, the mobilization, according to the Ukrainians, is going to plan. The troops will start having an influence on the front line in 3 months. That's the report. That would be good news, even though it's still 3 months, because the Ukrainians had reported that training is only 6 weeks. If now we are expecting them to be on the front line in 3 months, that would lead me to assume that the specialized training for the forces is continuing in the brigades, and thus the training will be better, which is obviously needed for a higher self-confidence, for higher morale, and for higher combat effectiveness along the front line here. But that was it already for today, for today's situation report. I do not have anything else to report. I also made a video about the crazy event in Lebanon. In case you missed it, it's up here somewhere it's linked to you here. You can find it there. If you've missed it, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have anything to add, or what you think about the Russian way of storing ammunition. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.